guys, welcome back to our Non-Toxic Podcast. I'm Hannah and I have so much to talk to you about today, which I know probably comes as quite the surprise because I don't talk for over an hour every single time I come on here to record. To paint the picture for you, it is Wednesday morning, the day prior to release date, as always. Usually I like to record in the afternoon because I find myself to be a little bit out of practice socializing first thing in the morning. You'd think that just the brief 8-hour gap between the night before and this morning would not be that detrimental to me, but every time I record first thing in the morning, I just feel like I'm not socially on yet because I haven't really interacted with a different person besides my husband, and he's great, but he doesn't count. Everyone who is in a relationship or married knows that does not count. I haven't talked or interacted with anyone yet this morning besides him. I have not even gotten a coffee. I do want to point out, protein shake / coffee. This is what I've been drinking every morning. And it's not because I'm in this crazy health kick. It's because I'm trying to make an effort to be at least minimally healthier. And I did go a week without candy because I knew that we were about to just dig into all of this Easter candy. And I was like, I have to take a little hiatus. One of my best friends had her birthday. We chowed down, had pizza, had fake pink drinks, ice cream cake, everything. And I was like, I'm going to wait until Easter to have any more candy because I know I'm about to go absolutely bananas off the wall, and I'm going to give myself time to process. My body just time to catch up and really get through all the sludge that's probably built up in my system. Also, I know that I have a really heavy protein deficit. I don't eat that much protein. I have no opposition to meat. It's just that my brain and body just don't seem to enjoy it. Every time I'm eating meat, I'm always grossed out by the texture. Unless it's in something that's probably less healthy for me, I just don't want to eat it. So whenever we eat healthy during the week, we have rice, carrots, chicken, pork chops, some steak, some fish. Salmon, oddly enough, doesn't gross me out. I know that people have weird opinions on fish, which is a topic that I didn't plan to get into this morning, the controversy over fish textures, but I never mind it. It never grosses me out, especially when you overcook it to oblivion like I do. But that's the only thing that never gives me the ick whenever I'm consuming it. So everything else I'll nitpick at and I have to choke it down. I just don't enjoy it. So I've been trying to find methods to get more protein into my diet without having to muscle it down every single night. So that being said, I have been mixing my coffees with protein shakes in the morning. We went to Sam's Club as a hot date night on Friday night and got a whole bunch of good stuff like that. And it's so far been good. Also, I did not get a coffee this morning because I have a coffee meeting later today at Urban Grounds. And that's another thing that it's really, this is what you're trying to improve yourself on. I'm trying not to purchase multiple coffees in one day. And that's the only bummer about not having a coffee meeting first thing, because if I have a coffee meeting first thing, I can go get the coffee, do the meeting, days off to a great start. Today, I'm starting off raw, no socialization, going straight to a camera, nerve-wracking. Second, I haven't even had a paid coffee, which don't know the science behind it. It's just better. This one is still good. I have the straw so I can make for quick sips on the podcast. Case in point. Super fast. Also, I don't know what it is about bringing coffees from home. It just doesn't feel fun. It feels impoverished. And I don't even know why, because I love to save a buck. I love to Goodwill shop. I love to pinch pennies wherever possible. But for some reason, making a coffee and putting it into a to-go cup, it just doesn't feel the same. It feels embarrassing. Why? I love my at-home coffee. I love it at home in a mug. But the second that I cross the threshold of my house into the outside world and I start to take my coffee onto my external adventures, I'm embarrassed. Is that just me? Probably. Let me dig into my notes. I did bring my iPad. That's how serious it is. We've got lots to say. You can't ever tell. Okay, let me squint. First, I got a voice memo from one of my dear sweet friends. You know who you are. And I never want to name drop because I want people to feel comfortable sending and telling me everything possible. So I never want to be oh my gosh, my friend Sally, and then have Sally get mad at me and not tell me things anymore. So I will never say names. Just know there's all love. And I think it's hilarious. I get a voice memo on Sunday, it doesn't matter, from a friend. And she's like, oh my gosh, Hannah, I was listening to this podcast. It's all about neurodivergence and all the different ways that it manifests in society and culture, and how there's 1 in 5 people that have some kind of manifestation of neurodivergence. And I was just thinking of you. Everything that they're saying sounds so much like you. And for those of you who don't know, neurodivergence can mean tons of different things, but typically when people refer to it, it's ADHD, autism, different cognitive, not necessarily disorders, but for the sake of explaining it, yes. And it's not necessarily like, oh my gosh, you're so neurodivergent as a compliment. It's usually like more of a diagnosis. So she sends me this voice memo and she's like, and they're talking about all these different things and it just reminds me so much of you. And they're talking about this specific condition where you associate different senses with each other and you kind of cross contaminate them. And it reminds me of something that you've said that you have, which for one, I just thought it was funny because she's like, they're talking all about neurodivergence. It reminded me so much of you. But the thing is, every single thing that she was explaining was absolutely spot on. So no complaints from me. Love to be thought of. And the condition that she was referring to is called synesthesia. And I do have it. Let me explain what that is. I don't know if I've talked about it before. So if I have, then just bear with me because I don't even remember what I say on most episodes, let alone over the past 72. Synesthesia is a condition that people have that can either be like you see colors as smells, or you see red and you always smell a certain thing, or you hear a song and then you see a certain color. Like I said, it basically cross your senses mix and you have two at once, you experience two at once. For me, it's always been letters, numbers, and colors. For example, all the alphabet and all numbers 1 through 10, and of course every combination thereof, have a certain color affiliated with them. So my name, Hannah, Hannah, is pink, black, orange, orange, black, pink. And numbers like 1, 2, 3, 4, it's black, pink, red, blue, orange. Those are just like, they all have had the same color since I was a child. I thought everyone had the same view of colors and numbers. So for me, it's always been easy to spell and to memorize and remember number sequences or patterns like codes, credit card numbers, things like that, because I can see the pattern. So if I need to remember my social security number, it's like blue, purple, pink, black, and so on. So I know all of these things. And I don't think I realized it until I was, in junior high or high school. And I was actually talking to my grandparents and explaining, oh, it's just this, this, and this. And they're like, what? Why did you just give me your phone number and colors? And I'm like, well, it's just the way the numbers look. And then they're like, tell me more about that, concerned. So I explained it to them. They talked to my mom. We're all looking into it. She works in education. Come to find out, it's actually a condition. It's called synesthesia. It's not something that's really, it doesn't require treatment. So there's not really a required diagnosis or anything. It's just something that people's brains do. And I think more people than you would think have it, and they just don't know, much like myself, that it's even anything notable. So that's a fun fact about me, is that I always see colors and numbers, and like that's how I have remembered passwords or like the code to even get into the podcasting studio. I remember it because it's orange, purple, pink, purple. So I always know, like, okay, that's what I punch in. I don't remember like the colors. I'm so sorry. I don't remember the numbers. I remember the colors. That is probably way off track and nobody cares about it, but I thought it was fun. And also, if anything else neurodivergent reminds you of me, then shout it out. Let me know. That's always a good time. Okay, next, I know my outfit is super wrinkled today. You might notice this denim jumpsuit. It's a little Canadian tuxedo meets prisoner, but I think it's cool and it's comfy. And it's really freaking cold outside today, and I was expecting a nice spring day, so I'm having a hard time dressing myself because my spirit says, summer dress. And the outside says, don't do that or it will blow up because it's super windy. So I have this outfit and I've wanted to wear it for a long time because I got it in Charleston. Super fun, thrifted Levi's, but it is too long to hang in my closet. So every time I put it up, it just wrinkles like crazy. And of course I didn't think about the outfit until I was about to leave. So I did a quick little tumble dry and it took out about 50% of the wrinkles. Still not looking its best. I still am looking a little disheveled, and that wasn't the intention. But also, if you see somebody in a full-on denim jumpsuit, I don't think you're expecting them to have a fully ironed and pressed outfit. So I'm not expecting any harsh criticism. I just want to get out ahead of it and let you guys know I am aware. I'm aware that one of my sleeves is super wrinkly, and that just is what it is. And I want to shout out the shoes. I got these from Gabe's. I don't know if you guys have been to a Gabe's before, but it's new to Springfield, and it is the most overwhelming store I've ever been in. Previously, that was Ross, Dress for Less, which I also am a big fan of. I just don't really go there. Gabe's is like Ross on steroids. It is 3 times the size. It's like a football field, 3 football fields. It is, we could live in there. We could fit most of our community densely packed into a Gabe's, and I think we could survive most of, if not all, of an apocalypse. It is so vast. It is so expansive. They have clothes. They have outdoor rugs. They have purses. They have mugs. I am Dr. Seuss, in case you're wondering. They have everything. It's like I didn't even go into half the store because I was getting so hot and overwhelmed. You know, the lights like subtly flicker and then your stomach is hurting and you're hot and there's people everywhere and you're like, does no one have a job? And then also you're there at the same time. It was that kind of situation. So I checked out with all my items and I left, and I did get these shoes for $5. And I was pretty pumped about that. So check out Gabe's if you're feeling like putting your body into fight or flight, but also getting a good deal on some hand soap and socks. That being said, we had a tornado this week. I am in Nixa and we did not experience the tornado. All my friends did. The sirens went off. It's the exact opposite of what happened last time, where last time the sirens went off in Nixa and not Springfield. So you guys got a taste of it. Just kidding. I know storms are very scary for some people. I like them, but I think it's because I've had no serious consequence to a storm. Well, I take that back. A year ago, I got caught in a tornado on the highway with my friends going to a bachelorette party, and I had about $10,000 of hail damage on my vehicle, but there was no injury to anyone's life. Also, insurance covered it. So I think that my sense of consequences with storms, it's been relatively minimal. So I'm not afraid of them. I actually like it because it feels kind of spooky, and I love to be outside during a storm. It just makes me, it feels like the movie Twister. If I had any idea how science worked, I would probably have gone into meteorology, i.e. storm chasing, because I only really know about it what I've seen in the movie. Speaking of meteorology, I was thinking as I'm listening to the broadcast and trying to be smart because you're trying to get your workout in, get your stuff done, get back home by the designated time that they've told you that the storms are going to start. I was doing all that and I'm listening to the radio broadcast and they're like, we've got a warm cell of pressure pushing in from the northeast and it's really going to come up south with a big swell. We've got a swell in from Baja, California, and it's going to put some downward pressure in it, and it's going to create this bubble. And if that bubble erupts, we're going to really see some densely packed air, and those two things are going to combine. And I'm listening to this broadcast for like 7.5 minutes. I have no more information than I did when I clicked into it. And KY3, you guys are so talented. You're so amazing. What are you talking about? I have no idea what you're talking about. Why are meteorology broadcasts geared towards us as if we were all studying this at a collegiate level? Why can't you just hop on and say, hey, the storm's coming in. It's going to be about 15 minutes later than we predicted. I would expect the rain to start in about 45. Sirens might go off in a cool 90 minutes. Get to shelter. That's all we need to know. I don't need to know about the pressure, the swells, or the gulfs of wind that are coming in from wherever. I have no idea. It makes no sense to me. Am I completely just out of touch? Am I not understanding these things that are like basic adult knowledge? Is every other adult listening to that broadcast and is like, oh yeah, the swell that's coming in, the pressure, that makes sense. I don't get it. It just seems like so much unnecessary information. I want them to know it. It makes sense for them to know it and then to analyze it and then to give it to me. But it's like, I don't want my doctor to come in and start explaining to me all the medical terms behind my condition. I want him to just say like, hey, you got the flu. Maybe I'm crazy. But that was prominent enough in my mind that I felt like it needed to go in the notes. So if anyone has like a News for Dummies app that I could tune into instead of weather.com, let me know, because I at this point don't even pay attention to the weather because I don't know what they're talking about. I look at the little thing on Apple and look for the sun or the cloud, and that's about the extent to which I prepare. Today it was the wind icon, and that did prove to be true. Next, I had a boo-boo this week, 1 week ago, and let me give you some backstory. I don't drink a lot. I socially drink, but I don't ever have like a glass of wine at the house, or I don't really go out. I love a good dinner or like drinks with the girls. But if I go out to like a brunch, I'm probably going to get coffee, not a mimosa. And it's nothing crazy. It's just that I'm usually driving home and it's not worth it. And if I can't have like 3 or 4 drinks and enjoy having the drink, then you have one and then you're just like, I guess I better sober up to drive home, and it's not worth it to me. So unless it's like the point of the occasion is like a lengthy hangout to have drinks or like we're doing something and I have a ride home, then I typically don't. And I'm even that friend where no matter what we're doing, I'm like, okay, so who's driving? Because I can't relax and have a good time unless we have like a designated driver planned out in advance. And you always have friends that are like, no, I'll be fine. Like I usually don't get drunk. I'm like, that's not good enough for me. And maybe I'm just crazy, but there's just too much risk. And of course, awful things can happen at the hands of somebody who's drinking behind the wheel, but also it's just not worth it. Like, is someone really going to risk getting a DUI? Like, even if nothing else happens, nothing bad, that's just not worth it. So I always want to have a driver, someone's husband, my brother, whenever he was in town, used to do it for us all the time, Uber, something like that. So I don't have a super high tolerance because I don't drink all the time. And like, I think in the month of March, I had like, I don't know, I had a cocktail in Vegas, which is sad, a cocktail in Vegas. And I don't really know what else I did. I think that I know there's another occasion. It doesn't matter. Once or twice a month, usually. And I went to a work meeting and we're having drinks in the patio. It's like the first beautiful day in a long time. I'm having a martini. And I always forget, even though a martini is my drink of choice, how strong they actually are. I had 3 because, guys, hear me out. We were chatting, ideas are flowing. It's so much fun. We're outside. Everything is great. We're snacking. And then next thing we know, bartender brings another round. It's at one of my clients' places of work, so it's not like we're just getting better service. Then the third one comes out. I'm like, oh my gosh, like I've been here for 3 hours. This is my 3rd martini. This is more than I have had. And I'm supposed to have dinner with my grandparents in like an hour. So I text my parents in the family group chat. I said, hey guys, I may have overdone it at a family meeting or at a work meeting. I need someone to come and get me for the ride or for the dinner to grandma and grandpa's. I cannot drive myself. Could I have? Probably. But like I said, I am way too paranoid and way too safety conscious when it comes to those things. I do not want to risk it. And especially during rush hour traffic, like there's no way. If I would have like chugged some water, maybe had some black coffee, eaten some food in the hour, yes, I would have been fine. But I just am not. Also, who's going to stop a work meeting and be like, excuse me, guys, can someone get me a black coffee and an ice water stat? And we're all having a great time. I know that sounds like peer pressure, but it wasn't peer pressure. I was just genuinely having fun. And so I text my dad and he's like, yeah, I'll come and get you. So then the work meeting ends. I'm leaving. I'm like, hey guys, my dad came to pick me up. Everyone thinks it's so funny. I am friends and work with amazing women who are not like, so, and also husbands were picking people. Like it was one of those, but it was such a good time. However, this is just a lesson for me, humbly. You're not too old and too mature to accidentally get a little too intoxicated at a work meeting. And am I proud of that? Beside the point. But I was humbled enough to call my father and say, hey, can you come take me to dinner? And then I went to my grandparents, and the whole time I'm like eating my lasagna, like waiting for it to like slowly come back down. And it wasn't that bad. It was just one of those where you're kind of like, you're tipsy and you're having a good time and you don't realize it until you stand up and you're like, oh my gosh. It was one of those. So about a plate and a half into the lasagna that grandma so lovingly made, I was feeling fine. Had a wonderful time with my grandparents and my family as always. Very wholesome, but also a good reminder that martinis can catch up with you, and my cap should definitely be too. And I'm not afraid to admit whenever I am too silly and don't cut myself off. So learn from my mistakes and or call your father to come pick you up. Next, which one do I want to go into? It really does not matter. Okay. Last night was the 40 Under 40 award ceremony. I was going to bring my plaque and set it right here next to me on the couch, but then I thought that would be obnoxious, so I didn't do it. But if you look on my Instagram, you can find photos. I was a little nervous, I'm not going to lie, because I was picturing it in the most embarrassing way possible. I'm picturing like you have to go on stage and walking up like 4 or 5 steps, and I'm all of a sudden seeing Jennifer Lawrence falling down at the Oscars. I'm getting nervous. I'm picturing myself twisting an ankle, and that's always the most nerve-wracking part. Like for me, it's not speaking. I could speak in public, but walking in public is more of what terrifies me. I'm like, am I standing up straight? Am I hunched over? Am I like laboring around like some kind of a gremlin? Am I going to twist my ankle? I don't know. It gets so in my head. So I was rehearsing my walk like in my head for probably the past 2 or 3 days. I knew this event was coming. We weren't going to do speeches. They had given us the chance to pre-record our videos, which I did, and it was not a big deal. And for some reason, the day of the ceremony, I'm like, I'm so nervous. And I'm one of 40. Like there's 39 other honorees. So it's not like any of the attention is just on me. It's the ideal situation for somebody who does not want to be the full center of attention. That was great. But I was getting like a little jittery the whole day, and I didn't really time everything correctly. So like I didn't wash my hair until right beforehand. That was a mistake. I also had fake tanned like Friday night. So my tan was not weird stage where like I can't put more on or it's going to look weird, but also it's kind of wearing off. Stupid. All stupid. But we got through the ceremony. My family was so great. My parents, grandparents, obviously my husband had to go, and my in-laws and then my brother and sister-in-law all came. So I had like my whole little entourage of 10, including myself. It was so nice. I felt so loved and supported. And honestly, it was a pretty like quick event. They had a good flow to it. You mingle around, and we didn't come for the cocktail hour just because everyone that I wanted to see was coming with me. So there's no reason to go early just to hang out with extra people. I did see a few people that I really look up to and I'm good friends with in the work sphere. That was nice. But essentially, it's like stadium seating. So there's everyone in the rows all the way back, and they did the little intro, talked about the like the event and the award, how long it's been going on. One thing I didn't know is that there were 260 nominees for this year. And then they, of course, had to narrow it down to 40. So at first I was like, okay, I'm one of 40. Like, it's not that big of a deal. But then hearing that, I'm like, okay, well, then now I feel like a little bit more, honored to have it, just because I'm sure there were tons of other qualified candidates and people that I hope will get to see their name on the page in the future, because it was a cool experience. But basically, they go through it. They read your little, this is Hannah McClellan Reuter, da, 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 and then you walk up. And then as you're walking up, they play your video. So you can walk up, shake the hand, get the little award, do your smiling picture, and then walk back down as your video is playing. So the attention really is on the video, not on you. It was as comfortable as it could be in that kind of a situation. I had on a leather dress, and I couldn't fit, I had the hardest time picking my outfit out for this event because I want it to be professional, but also trendy. And I always struggle with this as somebody who's younger in the industry, because I don't want to ever seem like I'm not taking something seriously or dressing too trendy and not professional enough, or too young, or wear anything revealing or anything like that if it's going to be a more buttoned up event. But I also don't want to seem like I'm just trying to dress older, because like I've said before, your strength is you, and me being 25, I'm not trying to dress like I'm 45. And it's just a difficult line for me to walk, and my fashion tends to not err on the side of professionalism, if you couldn't tell. But I had found this perfect dress from Express. It was mega on sale. It's like high-necked, plum, leather, has like these cool little twisties in the front, so you don't have to worry about it getting wrinkled, weird places. And it's fitted, so it felt flattering, but it also was, since it was high-necked and all the way down to my ankles, it still felt relatively conservative for an outfit. So I was super pumped with the dress. However, I looked a little bit like an Olympic shot putter in some of the pictures. And I'm like, I have to stop going to the gym because I take things too far. I've said this before. I get so into a working out phase, and it feels good when you're in the gym and you feel so jacked and you're like flexing. You're like, oh my gosh, yeah, I'm like such a badass. And then when you put on a girly dress and you go out, and I look like that meme of John Cena when he's in the dress. It always goes around like when someone says you look like your dad, and it's him with like a bow on his head and like all his muscles. That's how I feel. So I'm looking at the pictures and I'm like, oh my gosh, like I have to chill. I have to start doing Pilates or something. So I'm not going to be just looking like the Incredible Hulk trying to walk across the stage in my little heels. But all that to say, body dysmorphia is so crazy because I saw some of the photos. And of course, conference center lighting is the most universally unflattering in the world. It's like directly overhead. Somehow it's fluorescent, but also really yellow at the same time. And it's from all your worst angles. It highlights the texture on every part of your body. And it's just not good. Like, it's never good lighting. And it always makes me so crazy. Every time I have an event at one of these that's not like an evening event, I knew that was going to happen. Of course, I was having technical difficulties. I thought I had charged my little Alex Earl light. I thought I had charged my digital camera. Both of them not charged. So all I had was my phone. And I know that is more than enough to take pictures, but it's not my ideal method. I like to have my camera and everything else. Very unfortunate. But some of the pictures I'm taking, I'm like, oh my gosh, like I look massive. This is wild. Like, I did not know that I could flip over a truck, but apparently I can, judging by the way my arms look in this picture. But then there are other ones that I'm looking at, I'm like, oh my gosh, that is the best I have ever looked in my entire life. At this point, after seeing all of the photos from last night, I have no idea what I look like. And in some pictures, my hair looks super light, strawberry blonde. In some, it's full on orange red. I have no idea. And sometimes I think that we just are completely misled. Like, maybe mirrors are distorting us to the point that we don't even know what our face looks like. And cameras, like, we wouldn't know because we don't see ourselves. We only see either a photo or a reflection. We never actually look at our own faces. So that sent me into a whole like, do I look good or do I not kind of thing. And you know how sometimes you have those pictures of yourself that you look at and immediately you're like, I have to cut out sugar. I have to change something about my life. And that was one of the situations that I had. And I was looking at it, I'm like, all right, well, I guess I'm gonna have to start getting up early and like going for jogs. And then I see a different picture and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is perfect. Everything is great. I need to change nothing. And then you get tagged in a photo and you're like, so should I call like Weight Watchers? Like what's going on? And of course I'm being facetious, but it's just so ironic in not an ironic way, but we look so different from like photo to photo. Clothes fit differently from one pair of pants to the next. It's so difficult to actually know like what size you are, what flatters you, how your body looks, but that's all beside the point. So naturally, of course, I choose to wear the most unflattering outfit while I'm going to sit on camera for an hour and then later have to edit myself. That's going to be great for me and my self-esteem. But moving on to more wholesome things. I had a whole epiphany yesterday. I journal almost every day, at least like 4 or 5 times a week. And I really try and do it every single day, but the majority of the time I get to it. And I have done that for like 7 years. It just helps me get my thoughts out. It's my way of praying. Like every journal entry is like not necessarily a dear diary. It's more like a dear God, like here's what I'm worried about. And it helps because if I'm just sitting here like, dear God, da, 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 I will zone out in 7 seconds. So it's much easier for me to have like a tangible pen to paper. I was journaling and I was just like, God, I am so tired of my own mind. I'm stressing out about the dumbest things. Like first of the month, which I'll get to in a second, but whatever. First of the month, I have to do all my billing, and I had 2 clients not renew last month that I was really surprised by because I had been with them for a long time, and the plan is to pick back up after Q2, which is tax season, and there's a lot of things that go into that, but it wasn't because of me. It was like with the intention of coming back, but we're going to pause our contract right now. But of course, that means paused income for me. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like didn't expect that. Thought I was going in here. And I have always had a really hard time putting all of my finances in God's hands because I really want to control it. So I'm like, okay, this is scary. I've also been struggling with a lot of professional comparison lately. And it shouldn't be that way because I technically just crossed off this, bucket list item, this milestone that I've been yearning for years. But I've been struggling even more with just my career. And since I'm not as in it, I've talked about this so many times, I will not rehash it, but my heart isn't as in it as it has been in the past. I feel like I'm not performing at my best and I'm doing good work, but it's not passionate work, if that makes sense. And there is a difference, or at least I feel like there's a difference. So then I'm comparing myself to people who I feel like, okay, well, they're fresh, they're new, like they're still on it, they're really loving what they're doing and it shows, or people with bigger teams than me and so on. I've been struggling a lot with that and just feeling very inadequate, and that is difficult. Also struggling with just where we're at in life and like trying to figure out, what's next for our family and all of that situation medically. Like there's just a lot to stress out about. And then on top of it, I'm like, I just feel very gray, very melancholy for no reason. Like life is so good. I love this podcast. I love the other podcast that I'm starting, which go listen to Main Character Syndrome podcast. It's out everywhere now as of yesterday. It's all about books. I'll tag it. But I love all my projects. I love my friends. I'm doing so many fun things. I love my husband. Like I am loving what I'm getting to do, but I've just been feeling so like, and I think all of the stressors that just kind of weigh on you and you don't think about them actively, but they're kind of just always lurking over your head like little clouds. And as much as I try and put them out of my mind, they just hang over you. And I then get frustrated and feel angry at myself or feel guilty because there really is nothing that wrong with my life. My life is good. My friendships are great, like everything. So then why am I feeling so ho-hum about life? If you were to go back to me 5 years ago, still working at the bank, and say, hey, do you want like a glimpse into your future? Here, look at this. And hit play. And it was just a candid camera on me right now in 2024. I'd be like, you're kidding me. Like yesterday morning, I got up early, went to get a coffee, went to get my nails done, came back home, worked for myself the entire day, then went to get this award. Today, I get to wake up first thing, record a podcast, take meetings and do shoots all day that I'm super pumped about. Like all of these things, this would be a dream. But then the newness wears off, the novelty wears off, and you start to just take it for granted and start to think like, well, this is just my life. It's not anything crazy. There's nothing remarkable about this, but there is. And at one point, this is exactly what I wanted, what I prayed for. And I know that, I just don't feel it. So then I get angry at myself for not, I guess, feeling the full gravity of how blessed I am, which is so backwards. I'm like, oh, you should be happier. Like, this is so irritating. Like, why are you not feeling, why are you not so pumped? And then that doesn't make you any happier because you're just mad at yourself. So I was journaling and I'm like, I'm just going to give it to God, which that's a whole like Christianism where everyone's like, give it to God. Just lay it all on the Father. He pulls the yoke with you equally, whatever. All these church isms, but when it comes down to it, you're like, what does that mean? Give it to God. I would love to. How? Is there a drop box? Is there like one of those things at the fire station where you can go and put an infant in the box? Can I do that with my problems? If so, point me in the direction of the nearest holy fire station. I don't know where it is. I can pray about it. I can write it down, but I still feel it. So I know it's a whole, like, it's symbolic. It's a metaphor. You have to pray about it, like give it to God, pray for him to take it. It's hard, okay? Especially whenever I'm someone who really wants to take things into my own hands and try and resolve them or control them. Any kind of waiting doesn't bode well with me. And though I might be fearfully and wonderfully made, I think that might have been a design flaw. So giving it to God is hard. I do all of that. I'm like, here, I'm just going to write it down. If I need to pray about it later, tomorrow, like whatever I have to do, I just want to be done stressing about these same exact things. And I put my journal away before I go back to work. I'm like, I should read my journal from this time last year, because sometimes that makes me feel just immensely better. I can look back and see all of the inconsequential, silly, trivial things I was stressed about, and then see how they ended up playing out and be like, I just didn't know what I was talking about. Things are so good. Like God answered all those prayers. Everything worked out how it was supposed to. Amen. Chapter closed. Everything's going to be fine. So I pulled out my old journal. I flipped back to the first week of April from last year, and I am still a little speechless. I was not kidding you, writing about the exact same things. I had just lost a big client this time last year, and it was very difficult for me because I had worked really hard to get this client. I had him for a few months. I was so pumped about it. And again, super unexpected. They're gone. And I'm like, and the thing with me, whenever you have a bigger client, you have bigger clients individually. I used to have probably 30 clients, but they were smaller scale. So if I lost one or two, it did not move the needle hardly at all. Now I work with probably 10 to 12 clients, but they're bigger. So if I lose one, I'm like, oh my gosh, like it takes a bigger percentage of my income away. And then I have to work harder to find like another new client. And I've been lucky enough to have enough demand come to me that I haven't really had to spin my wheels too hard. So I take that with a grain of salt, but it definitely shakes me. So whenever I lost that bigger client last year, I was like, this is going to change everything. Everyone was talking about how we're going into a recession. I'm like, what's the first thing that's going to get cut? Marketing, social media, for sure. So I was kind of spiraling. In that same vein, I was struggling with comparison to the exact same people that I'm comparing myself to now, the other competitors that I have. And I've said before, I don't feel like I have competition in the sense that I am equitable to someone else. There are people who are better than me at ads, who are better than me at maybe video editing. There are people who are better than me because I have a bigger team, but I'm better in a different way. Like it's not the same. People aren't going to hire me if they want a big agency. They're not going to hire an agency if they want the specific things that I bring to the table. So I've been very good about staying in my own lane and knowing what my strengths are, and the fact that I'm a one-person show does change what I can take on. I've been so good about reminding myself of that as I've grown and also strategically not grown. However, comparison is so easy to slip into, and that's, again, a struggle I'm having now. Almost verbatim what I was struggling with a year ago, saying, I feel like I'm hitting a wall. I feel like I'm burnt out. I feel like I'm not I'm not winning right now. I'm not on top of my game. And then I look around and it seems like everyone around me is just new client, awesome content, doing this, doing that. And that's obviously tough to admit because I never want to seem like I'm just over here like, oh man, I suck and everybody else is awesome. Because pride is a factor, but it just at the stage that I was in then, I was so burnt out from working so hard. Now I'm burnt out because my heart is in a different stage of life and like wanting to put my love into that. But the sentiment is the same, where I just don't feel like I'm as plugged in as I want to. And at that point, I was just very heavily like, why am I slowing down? Like, is my luck running out? Because, imposter syndrome tells you that this is all a fluke. You just had this by accident. This is not how your life is going to go. You get to do this social media thing for like a little bit, but then it's going to like reality will come back in. So I was really struggling with that. And then I was talking about how like life is just so chaotic. I'm feeling so spread thin. I was coming off of a weekend where I had a birthday, a bridal shower, a baby shower that I was hosting. And then the next week it was like another bachelorette party. It was just one of those like crazy seasons. And I was like, I just want life to calm down. I feel like I'm so scattered. I haven't gotten into a routine in forever. I'm just feeling so flustered. I just want things to calm down so I can have sanity and peace and everything else. And I'm just so tired of taking life for granted because I'm doing all these fun things. And all I can think about is work and how stressed I am and how I get just things on a to-do list. It's not like, oh my gosh, I get to do all these fun things and go to the shower and celebrate this. I'm just thinking about like, okay, got to get this done, get this done, get this done. So I can go back to thinking about work. And I literally used the word melancholy again. And I was sitting there in my office reading this journal and I'm like, I don't know how I feel about all this because in a year, you're telling me that have I gone full circle coming exactly back where I was? And I have several thoughts. One, it makes sense to be in this like gray melancholia because we're in that stage where winter is lingering so hard and you're so desperate for spring and sunshine and every gray day feels a little bit harder. Like this weather, if it would have hit in December, I wouldn't have thought a thing of it. This weather in April is like a death sentence. It feels like, please, like give me some sunshine. I am begging you. And that's an easy reason, just because the spring is lingering. You want it to be nice and warm and you're so desperate to be outside. Surface level. Next, work is obviously going to be a big stressor for me because that's the biggest thing happening in my life. I don't have kids. My marriage is great. I don't really have a lot of other things to stress about. Work is like the most prominent occupant of my time. And obviously it's a financial factor in my lifestyle. So that's why it's so important. But the fact that I was struggling with the loss of a client then, loss of clients now, struggling with comparison then, comparison now, struggling with wanting things to be nice and tidy and organized. I'm like, have I just not changed? I'm writing in the exact same tone. Everything is like this desperate, like, why can't I get my head on straight? So here are my takeaways from that. One, I don't want to spend another second in this same atmosphere. Because when I look back on that season of my life, I have the good memories of going to these bachelorette parties. I have fun memories laughing with my friends. I see the Instagram photos. I'm like, that was such a fun time. Judging by my journal entries, you would think I was doing a synthesis in Alcatraz. This is not, they're not, something's not checking out. And obviously it's different in hindsight. You know, everything is better whenever you look back on it, you're romanticizing it. But I'm like, I don't remember the stressors. So why am I living the stressors so heavily right now? When I look back, I'm not thinking about how pressed for time I was, how my house was messy. And that was something I had journaled about, being like, I feel like I haven't even had time to clean my house or catch up on laundry. I feel so behind and so flustered. If I hadn't read that and you asked me how I was feeling last year, I'd be like, I felt great. I was doing all these fun things. Everything was amazing. So why now am I stressing about the small stuff like, oh my gosh, like your medication's making you bloated or whatever these little inconsequential things that are bothering me? Why am I letting them occupy my real estate now if they're not going to even make a dent in my memories? They are not defining to this stage of my life. So why am I letting them define my days, if that makes sense? So that was kind of like a reality check where I'm like, okay, this is the things I'm worried about now obviously will not matter a year from now, probably not even 6 months from now. So let's really stop letting them take root. Next, I cannot express to you how amazing last year was for me in so many ways. At this point last year, I had just booked the trip to Dallas. Sorry, I hit the microphone. Just booked the trip to Dallas that I went to with a client in July. But I hadn't gone on it yet. I hadn't done anything. I was still kind of riding that up and down wave of the beginning of the year, tax season, like clients are kind of wishy-washy. And I was like, I can't tell if God is telling me to pump the brakes. And that's why things are slowing down, because I need to take a chill pill and stop and smell the roses or whatever. Or if I'm supposed to work harder and like grind and try and get more clients, I never know. So I was just wrestling with that. Fast forward, I had a trip every single month from July to now. Every single month I went somewhere. November was the only month that I didn't fly. So it was just a very overwhelming, very busy travel season. Most of those were work trips, actually. And that was something I had never anticipated going into before this past year. I never expected to be flown anywhere. I'm like, I do social media. What's the point? Like, why would they take me somewhere else? The business is here. It opened up a complete new avenue to my work. It expanded my horizons. I got these new experiences. At this point last year of writing those journal entries, all of the most defining memories of 2023 had not happened yet. And I just cannot even put into words. I know I sound so flustered and so overwhelmed, but I truly am. From that vantage point, I couldn't even see what was coming. And it ended up being like I had two of the most mind-bogglingly amazing financial months of my entire career that I might not ever be able to touch. I signed new clients that I would never have expected. I got this nomination, and of course I didn't find out last year, but I got this award. And I don't know. I just feel like I grew in so many areas. So many of my friends that I consider close now that ended up coming to my birthday at the end of the year, I didn't even know at this point. Just insane, like crazy growth, crazy life experiences. I just had no idea. And to think of that in terms of this year, I'm standing at the same vantage point of, early spring, looking over the rest of the year, and I'm freaking out because I lost a couple clients, and not even lost. I paused a couple clients, and I'm comparing myself when at the end of last year, I felt so secure because I had always had that lane that was just mine. And now I felt like that lane was 15 miles separated from every other person that I could possibly be competing with, and not ahead, just separate. Like I was just far removed from them because what I'm doing and being hired to do is so specific to my business and my strengths and my skill set. It can't be compared. And that's great because they're great at what they do. I'm great at what I do. There's no need for comparison. I was feeling so alive and just, of course, overwhelmed. I was still running around like a chicken with my head cut off. I was like flying by the seat of my pants, and the laundry wasn't done, believe it or not. It didn't slow down until this winter, which was a really hard time for me. But even then, I feel like I had taken leaps and bounds in my faith and my testimony. And it was just a really remarkable year in so many ways. And to think that I am being so naive to think that was the only year that God can do that in my life. And from this vantage point, I can see the tone of the rest of 2024, and I know exactly what's going to happen. And well, they're doing better than me, and like I'm not where I wanted to be this year, and blah blah blah. I have no idea what's coming this year. I could not have even thought to pray for the things last year that I consider the best parts of the year. So now to be thinking about the year as though it's already cemented, it's written in stone. To quote the wise Natasha Bedingfield, the rest is still unwritten. Like the whole song, everything we know, everything is totally up to us and the choices that we make. I'm getting too overarching with all of this. The point is, it was very humbling for me to go back and read that. It was not at all what I was expecting. I was expecting to look back and think like, oh, I'm having drama with this friend, and then see the conclusion and be like, oh, well, that worked itself out. That's what I was hoping for. It was the exact opposite. And I would love to be mad at myself for being like, girl, you're spinning your wheels. You're in the exact same spot as you were last year. But there's something poetic about it, because I always have said, if I would have known that God was going to take care of all of this, if I would have known it was all going to work out, I wouldn't have wasted so much time stressing. I would have just waited. And last March, April, if I would have known I was going to have the best financial year of my life, I was going to go to Vegas and Dallas and DC and New York and where's the other place? Philadelphia. All these places with clients. If I would have known I was going to do all these things, I wouldn't have stressed. I would have just kicked back and been like, you know what? This is the spring. I can take it easy. The big stuff is coming. I'm just going to enjoy it. But I didn't know that. And apparently I didn't have enough faith to be like, whatever's coming is going to be good. So I spent the whole first half of the year stressing. And to apply that to now, why can't I just know that things are going to work out? There's a plan. God is good. Things are going to work out one way or another, how they are supposed to. So why would I, in this present moment, grasp on so tightly and try so hard to control everything? And even that is like grasping at sand, because I can't control it. I can't control if a client has a completely independent circumstance and has to stop their social media contract. Like I can't control if a hot water heater bursts and now they have a $10,000 expense and they can't pay me for a few months. Like I can't control any of that. So why am I trying to? And why am I grasping onto it like it defines my life and my soul? And that's one thing that I did learn last year, because I had to learn it, is you cannot let yourself get too high in the highs and too low in the lows. And for me, I'm talking financially, because my income is different every month. I can't let myself get so cocky and so, I am so brilliant. I was going to say Bill Nye. I am Bill Gates. I am Jeff Bezos. I am Elon himself. I am so rich. I am so successful. Someone give me a Forbes cover. You start to think that way. I mean, I'm exaggerating slightly, but you start to think that way when things are going well, like better than you expected. And you attribute all of that to your own hard work. And part of it is, but also part of it's luck. And part of it is, you're being blessed, all of those things. It's a whole conglomerate. But then when things take a downturn, it's way harder, because then I'm like, it's my fault. If all the good things are because of my good work, all the bad things must be my fault because I suck. That is really difficult on someone's psyche. And I had to really learn to separate myself from the highs and the lows, because if you let the highs define you, Then when it's taken away, all of a sudden you're left with nothing. I have to be steady and be secure in who I am, what I do, my skill set, who I am as a person, independently of my business. And the same can be said for, say, health or fitness. Like if I'm loving myself when, my abs are defined and I'm feeling great and I'm running 8 miles a day and everything's awesome, then am I going to not love myself whenever I'm carrying some extra weight and not feeling good about myself and the clothes are fitting a little bit more snug? Probably that's going to be hard. But that's why you can't let your ego or your sense of self get inflated by these things that don't really define you. And that's another thing that I've been really trying to work on is knowing that social media and entrepreneurship and this business as a whole is just one facet of my life. This is just one stint. And whether this lasts me another 2 or 3 years and that's it, or if it lasts me another 30 years and I can stay in marketing in some capacity for that whole duration, it will evolve and change just like I will. But this is always just what I do. It's not who I am. I've been me for the past 25 years. I've liked the same type of music. I've read the same kinds of books. I've related to the world in the same or a similar kind of way. I've lived in my head and been me for so long. And now I'm going to reduce myself to what this business is. That's just so short-sighted. And I don't even know if I'm getting across the point because it's so groundbreaking in my head, but it's difficult to articulate and to express to you how much of an epiphany I feel like it was. It felt like the sun coming over the horizon in my head and realizing simultaneously, it's not that serious. At the end of the day, it's not that serious. No one cares. No one is watching me to see if I succeed or fail. No one probably even really cares about my biggest successes or failures besides those closest to me. But even then, it doesn't define their relationship to me. No one is friends with me because I have so many clients. I hope not, at least. But no one is considering those things when they're considering their opinion or relationship to me. So then why am I doing it with myself? I know myself better than anyone else in theory. So why am I letting these arbitrary worldly things, sorry, Siri's chiming in. These arbitrary worldly things define who I am? That's tough. And it's very deep, but that's kind of where I'm at now. I'm trying to remember, just have this bold, optimistic faith and outlook on life and the rest of the year and thinking it is all going to work out. So then why should I stress now? We're going to grow our family. We're going to have a baby. We're going to have the most amazing experience becoming parents in this life. Will it happen next month or in a year or in 5 years? I don't know. I have no idea, but I know it's going to work out. Will I get more clients? Probably. Will I lose more clients? Also probably. But the good thing is if I'm having a slower month, I have more time to live life and to do everything that I want to do. And again, as much as I love my job, most of my best memories are not sitting at my computer working or content shooting. They are life lived outside of that. So if I'm having a slower month, that's just more room for the life. And I owe it to myself with the assumption that I will get busier and things will pick back up to fit all of that in now while I've been blessed with more time. And then in the future, when I'm blessed with more business, I can enjoy that knowing that I had made the most of the time where I wasn't glued to my work. So that's my goal. Radical optimism, being super positive as much as I can possibly tolerate, because I am at my core a little cynical, and that's okay. But just knowing things are going to work out in the future. I want to flip everything on its head from being perpetually well, man, if I would have just known it was going to be okay, I would have chilled out. No, now I'm going to flip it and chill out now. And of course, work hard and of course, go to the gym and pursue betterment in most areas of my life, because what is life if you're not working towards something, even if it's just happiness? But assuming it's all going to work out, because what is the detriment to that? If I assume it's going to work out for 6 months and guess what? It doesn't. I don't lose anything. If anything, I gain 6 months of happiness compared to dreading, and then it works out. Yeah, I got what I wanted, but I lost 6 months of time to this agonizing dark cloud that's just looming over me. Versus now, even if the worst case scenario happens, worst thing comes to pass, I don't get what I want, and I never do. At least I have not wasted my whole life being miserable. I hope that makes sense. Also, I'm switching gears for a second. I do think that you have control over your outlook. I've said before, if you genuinely are struggling with a level of depression that is not manageable on your own, you should seek help. But I think that a lot of times we don't give ourselves the credit for how autonomous our attitudes are. And there are a lot of psychological issues at play when it comes to anxiety and depression and, regulating your general emotions and mood. But for the most part, we treat it as though it's a solid, it's cemented in your life. I'm sad, I'm depressed, like I can't control this. We can. And sometimes all it takes is giving yourself that really harsh talk of like, you're doing this to yourself. Like if you wake up and you cancel plans and you don't work out and you don't eat something even remotely good for you and you spend time on your phone, you're not pursuing anything, you do nothing fulfilling. Well, what do you expect? And I'm just as guilty whenever you have those days where I'm like, I'm so overwhelmed, I'm stressed, I just want to stay here and do nothing. But then that stress only perpetuates. So I think that we have to give ourselves a little bit of tough love sometimes, like I felt whenever I was reading my own entry and being like, I've gotten myself right back in the exact same bear trap as before. Guess it's time to cut my leg off, I mean that metaphorically. Please do not reach for any kind of sharp utensil. But I think if you're at that point where you have been feeling the melancholia, you've been feeling so gloomy, so like, what is this going to give? Is this all life is? And I do feel like a hypocrite at times because I'm so, I guess, outwardly bubbly and positive online and everything is la la la, whatever, like just off in my own happy little world. And I do feel like that to an extent, but it's more of like over my shoulder all the time. Like it feels like it's in my peripherals. Like I'm looking at like the sun, like it's right now, it feels like literally because I'm staring into a ring light, but it feels like I'm looking into like the happy part, but there's this cloud that's just like kind of creeping around here, like around my peripheral. And I'm just waiting for it to get close enough to like zap me with lightning. And then you have this dread where it's always just like, And I don't know if other girls, my anxiety girls, relate to this. I'm sure you do. But sometimes you don't even know why you're anxious. And I've had so many entries like that into my journals where I'm writing, I'm like, I don't know why I feel so heavy. I don't know why I feel so anxious. I feel like my stomach is in knots, my chest feels tight, I feel panicky, I feel just generally uneasy. Why? And I'll go through my list. I'm like, I'm not unhealthy. My marriage is great. I'm not really worried about that much. I'm worried about, of course, work stuff, but like there's the dread that I'm feeling right now. You would think I was being hunted. Like I will have like the resting heart rate of someone that's being hunted for sport. And I'm sitting having coffee at my house at 9 a.m. on a Wednesday. Why? And that is so difficult for me because I can logic myself through it. I can Mr. Spock myself through most situations, but I can't convince my body to react accordingly. So even if I can talk myself through it, and I know without a doubt, like things will be okay, everything will be fine, everything is going to work out this way. You shouldn't feel like this. You should feel like that. Here's how I should logically think about it. It doesn't work. It doesn't work for me. I still feel the dread. I'm just telling myself like, everything's okay. Everything's okay. Everything's fine. And like rocking myself to sleep in the corner. But it is very challenging. And that's one thing that I know maybe will come with practice. But if not, it's the only time that I think it's okay to shove down your emotions. Most of the time I'm like, get it out, express it. And for me, that would be journaling, give it to God, if you will, and get out of my system, talk to a friend about it, let them talk you off a ledge, hopefully, and then go about your life and just assume the best is going to happen. Like I said, what bad is going to come from assuming the best is going to happen? Next. I'm almost done, I promise. That was actually not even my topic, but I talked about it for 20 minutes. So I get a lot of comments / messages that are like, oh my gosh, you do so many things. Like what can't you do? A lot. I actually made a whole video about things I can't do. But I don't say that to be like, oh my gosh, I'm so good at so many things. It's not that. I just have so many interests and so many hobbies that I want to give time to. And I have also had many phases throughout my life where I've picked up different skill sets and then just have continued them on. So like drawing, I'm not a great artist. I do like to draw, and I had a pretty extensive drawing phase whenever I was younger. So maybe I'm like slightly above average. Sometimes I have things where I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so good. Sometimes I draw and I'm like, have I ever picked up a pencil? Have I ever seen a human's face before? Guess not. But I like to do it. I like to crochet. I learned to crochet. I'll go through phases where I just really want to learn something. And I think overall my passion is truly just learning things. And I know that sounds so silly and so dorky, but I love to learn a new skill and like figure out how things work and so on. And then I was getting on to myself the other day because it seems like everyone online, all these gurus are so good at one thing. Like if there's a fitness girl that I follow, she's in the gym every single day. Every single day she's wearing Gymshark. She's having her protein, her diet's, perfect. Macros are always hit. Everything is amazing. And I'm comparing myself to her because I'm like, I am so far from that. I love the gym. I love to work out. I'm so far from that. Or I'll compare myself to a business owner who like eats, sleeps, and breathes social media. They're always in seminars, they're listening to podcasts, they're pursuing this all the time, they're perfecting their craft. I'm like, I'm not doing that either. And then I'll look at, Holly Homemaker online who has the most beautiful house. It's so well decorated. She's DIYing things. I'm like, oh my gosh, my house still looks like I just moved in and we've been there for almost 3 years. And it just is so disheartening to think that everyone is an expert in their one thing and that I am not. I am like 60% good at most things that I try. And that's it. That's like barely above average. And maybe I'm not giving myself enough credit, but you know how it is. Like the way I see it, I'm like, what would I do if I applied myself to one thing? Would I, if I put all of this energy that I have so laterally spread into one thing, would I be amazing at it? Like, would I do so well? But I don't want to. And then I was, going through this whole mental thing. This is completely separate from that mental thing. But where I'm like, what if I just went all in on one thing? Like, should I just be the gym girl or should I just be the business girl? Should I just be the podcaster? Like, what do I do? What is my thing? But I don't want to have just one thing. I don't want to niche down. And that's kind of the term on Instagram or TikTok where everyone's like, if you want to blow up on your account, you have to niche down. But translating that to life, I don't want to niche down. Like, I don't want to pare myself down to one specific thing that's supposed to define everything about me because I like everything that I do and everything that I am. So maybe I'm heavily barricading myself from true success because I can't pick one thing to do with my life. But I don't know. I don't want to relegate all my passions and just, choose one. But I think it's okay. And I think it's okay to be multifaceted. I also struggled with that with this award, to bring it back to the beginning, because I'm like, I'm not this person. I'm not, like, I don't want them to be disappointed. Be like, who is this girl? Like my acceptance video was seriously filmed in front of my comic book wall. And not to say that you can't like comic books and also be professional. That is very silly. But at the same time, I just feel like I don't necessarily fit into the mold of any one thing that I'm doing. And sometimes that bothers me. But then I was thinking, no, why do we put so much pressure on these archetypes that we all have to fit into? Like, you're either the crunchy granola girl who's so wholesome and does this, or you're super glam or you're the clean girl. Like, there's all these terms that we've come to through social media that we put ourselves into. We BuzzFeed quiz ourselves into. And I just think it's okay to be multifaceted. You contain multitudes. You are able to be as nerdy as you want to and as professional as you want to. You can be so into fashion and maybe not at all into makeup. You can be so into makeup and so into the gym. You can be super, super healthy, but also live for pizza and beer. You can be so artistic, but also so logical and so good at math and work in a very professional buttoned-up field. You can be a mom and still love to be wild and crazy and, of course, take care of your kids. I mean, but like, there's so many things that I think we assume are the antithesis of each other, and you can't do both. Like, you can't eat a bag of Nerds clusters every week and also go to the gym. I personally think that's wildly, wildly untrue. Hypothesis has been proven incorrect. But I don't know. Maybe that I'm the only person that feels that way, where I'm like, who am I even? Like, what am I doing? What is my thing? I don't know. Lots of people who follow me would be like, probably Spider-Man is your thing. That is true. I'm staring into a pair of Spider-Man eyes as we speak right now. But that's just kind of an ongoing train of thought. So maybe I'll get into that a little bit more in the future. But I just think that it's okay to not fit into a box. And like I've said before with life stages, it's okay if this life stage isn't just like the business stage or the fitness stage or the baby stage or the social stage. Like, it's okay if this part of my life doesn't fit into one of those. It's also okay if I don't fit into one of those. Like, I don't know, like, am I just like a best friend? It doesn't matter. Be everything you want to. Be everything all at once. Whatever the movie is, everything, everywhere, all at once, that's you. I feel like I'm giving a motivational speech. I'm talking to myself. I'm alone in a room talking to myself, and these are all things that I needed to hear. It's all in your head, which is comforting, but also it's all in your head is terrifying. Just try and make that a good place to be. Try and be positive. Try and assume the best. Expect the best. Think the best of yourself. Say something nice to yourself. Shoot me a message. Let's chit chat. Let's talk. I hope this all made sense. It wasn't just a crazy cluster of brain dump, but also, what else do you expect from my podcast? This is all I got, guys. This is what's going on up in the old dome, the old melon, the mind palace. Anyways, that's all I got for you. Thank you for listening. Thank you for all the sweet messages last week. I didn't mean to complain and be like, you guys never give any feedback. You just listen and lurk and don't say anything. But I did get some good feedback from last time, and I was really happy with that. So thank you to everyone who reached out. Again, listen to my other podcast if you want to. It's called Main Character Syndrome. It's out on YouTube and Spotify. It's all about books, fictional characters, fangirl stuff. It's really fun. The episodes are a lot shorter than these, so you can just throw them into your day whenever you see fit. And those come out every Tuesday. These come out every Thursday. So if you want, you can effectively fill several commutes of the week with my voice. So love you guys lots. Thank you so much for listening. Have a wonderful day. Have lots of mountains, no valleys. Treat yourself on Friday, and I will talk to you next week. Bye.